So what is lawfare as such? The definition is actually, or the concept of lawfare is not new. It was already used in the 1970s, but it only became a mainstream term in 2001 regarding Kosovo, when a US Air Force veteran now, he said that is lawfare turning warfare into unfair? And let that sink in, because that's very important. And it was Kosovo the first case when lawfare was actually applied. But here comes the trick. If it would be, like in a live audience, I would ask you, what do you think about lawfare, whether it's positive or negative? But since I don't have the option here, I can tell you that there is a positive lawfare and there is a negative lawfare. But I think, like, at least my perception about lawfare is definitely a negative connotation, because that's what I see around me and in this niche that I'm working at. So there are several examples on the global era for lawfare, but the laboratory for lawfare is clearly the Israeli-Palestinian situation, and the secondary is China. So like America barely uses lawfare. Again, they do, for example, when they withdraw money from the UN, or when they leave the UNESCO, those are lawfare related actions. But where you hear lawfare, and if you Google lawfare, the most situation that comes up is regarding Israel and the Palestinian people. For example, and I don't know if you know that, but also in Israel, one of the lawfare proponents is Shurat Hadin, which is an NGO, and they are clearly saying that lawfare is good, and Israel can use lawfare for a positive outcome. And on the other side, you have BDS, which is by default, and every action of it is lawfare, but it's definitely on the negative side if we are talking about the pro-Israel advocacy world. Some argues, and it's very important, that lawfare is so much better than warfare because it's less costly and you have less dead people. Again, I'm not sure we can really say that, because if you just think about what happened in 2011 when Abbas used lawfare to push for the release of 103 prisoners who were terrorists, who killed Jews and killed Israelis, and then they were let be free again and they were ready to kill again. So I don't think you can really measure whether lawfare gives less dead people at the end of the equation than warfare. So that's very important. And that was a huge lawfare case, what Abbas did. And I will get into that because it's related to the ICC and how they blackmailed Israel. So the question is really, isn't lawfare a detriment of humanitarian values as well as the law itself? Because at the end of the day, what is lawfare? Is the use of law as a substitute for traditional military means to achieve war-fighting objectives. So that's the beautiful definition. If you just want to be it more profane, then we can just say that they exploit law, they misinterpret law, and they actually pervert law in many ways. So who uses lawfare? Basically anyone and everyone. International organizations, states, quasi-states like the Palestinian Authority, militias like Hamas, for example, and advocacy groups on both sides, and individuals. So such as you or I, we both can use lawfare for whatever issues that we want to tackle. How to use lawfare? So I'm gonna give you a kind of list because it makes you think how many ways lawfare can be used. First of all, to create new international laws and new international paragraphs within the law. This is what happened at the ICC, meaning that as the Arabs started to join the ICC, they started to create a new type of law which made the Israeli settlements equated to war crimes. And this just happened on our watch. The reinterpretation of the existing law, generating persecutions on courts, and that happens mainly in third countries. So for example, most of the cases, the Palestinian Authority turns to third country legal courts, like the UK, The Hague. So for example, there was a case in the UK that pro-Palestinian advocacy group started to boycott the company Ahaba, the Dead Sea company. And eventually, that became a court case. So it was an Israeli-Palestinian court case within the UK, because British people started to attack an Israeli company within UK just because what happens to the Palestinian Arabs. So it's a whole twist. So it was not actually taking place, within the two parties, but in a third party. Actually, they lost. So those people who started to boycott, they lost, but the Ahava shop eventually stopped operating in that part of the UK, so they won. And that is why it's so important. Playing with permits, that's another lawfare. And here is an Israeli example. Shurat Hadin, a couple of years ago, stopped a boat coming from Greece to Gaza. How? That they literally played lawfare, and they pushed Greece to stop giving these boats the permit to use, the water route. And they won, so the boat didn't arrive to Gaza. Civil suits holding organizations that fund terrorists responsible. If you ask me, that's a good lawfare option because, terrorism. And there are big NGOs, the non-government organizations, which are naming and shaming anyone on anyone they want. And here is a great example, using education of kids actually, to change narratives. And this is what happens through the United Nations books, educational books in Gaza, which I saw with my own eyes. And it's like horrendous, like seriously, I don't even know how it can happen that we allow that. Or there are books published by pro-Palestinian NGOs, and they are titled 10 Good Reasons to Use the Term Colonialism, Apartheid, or Ethnic Cleansing. Education. And that's, again, a lawfare. Because the moment you change the narrative, the moment you twist the legal jargon just to make your political case heard, that's lawfare.